the Deborah Flora Show on 710 KNUS News Talk Radio, weekdays from 3 to 4. Deborah Flora.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. What a wonderful event. Thank you, Baltimore and Long Island Republicans and everyone who has made this possible. I am just going to say a couple of words and I'm going to introduce an amazing panel of ladies. So we're going to start talking about education. That's what this first panel is about. And I got to tell you, who knows when a mom gets her dander up, you better look out, right? I think that's one of the ways we're going to take back our state, we're going to take back our country. There's a revolution that is actually happening starting at the school boards and going right across our state and across America. And you may or may not know, I made a documentary, Whose Children Are They?, with my husband. And the only reason why I want to mention that is because that's really the question that is riling so many people up. Whose children are they? They're our children. Whose state is it? It's our state. And there's some great ladies that we're going to hear from who are at the forefront of this. Many of you know that a much more blue state than Colorado, Virginia, and I often say that Colorado isn't actually blue, it's purple or schizophrenic. It just depends on how you look at it. But a much more blue state than Colorado elected not just a Republican governor, but swept many of the races there on one primary issue: education and parental rights. And we can do that here, and I'm about to introduce an amazing panel of women who are going to lead that charge. So why don't you ladies join me as I introduce you. We have Lynn Emerick. Lynn, come on up. She's a Republican nominee for House District 27 based in Jefferson County. She is an Arvada Republican. She is challenging Representative Brianna Titone. Is that how you say it? Exactly. And she's a mom of 3 children. I only have 2, so she already outranks me in momhood. Love it. Go ahead and have a seat. We also have Heidi Ganahl. She's a Republican nominee for governor. Come on up. I don't think I need to say too much. She's a mom with a mission, and even her shirt says that, so you know what? It's awesome. We have Courtney Potter. She's a Republican nominee for State Senate District 24. Come on up, Courtney. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the ladies with some very specific questions for each one of them. And then Savannah Wolfson. Savannah representing Northwest Colorado. Come on up. Republican nominee for House District 26 in Northwest Colorado. Mom of 2, mom of 4, mom of 1 beautiful, almost 3-year-old. Oh, 3. I am outraged by everybody here. That is awesome. So we're going to just go ahead. I'm going to ask some questions and really look forward to it. Some questions are going to be specific and some of them are going to be general questions that I want you all to chime in on. Let me just ask this question first of all. One of the quotes that literally is a motivator when I get tired and keeps me going is a Ronald Reagan quote. Always have to have a Ronald Reagan quote. But it says, and it's about our kids, it says, we have a rendezvous with destiny. Everybody knows that part. The rest of it goes like this. We will protect for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the final step into 1,000 years of darkness. I've seen that darkness. I was in East Germany. I've been in Russia. It is dark, and I'm doing it so we can hand this, the last best hope of man on earth, onto our children. I want to ask each one of you this. Does being a mom motivate you, and is it a part of why you're running?
Feel free to
Well, feel free to take a microphone.
So I have 3 little babes, 6, 4, and 3, and raising them will be my greatest achievement on this planet. And I decided to run because I need to look them in the eyes and say I did everything I can to give you the best opportunity in Colorado. And I don't want to hand over a place where you're living and I do not recognize it. That's why, yes, for them every day.
Yes, yes! We're running for our kids and our grandkids. If they aren't okay, nothing else matters, right? And right now, they are not okay. We have one of the highest suicide rates in the country here in Colorado, 2nd highest drug addiction rate for kids in the country. And 60% of our kids cannot read, write, or do math at grade level. That is tragic for our children. So I call myself a mom on a mission. Today I upgraded it to a pissed off mom. It's because we're getting close to the election, so I need to kind of, come on! So yes, it makes a big difference.
Pretty much repeating what they said, it absolutely is a motivator for me. Our kids are hurting. I see it in my own children. I see it in the children in our community, and I can't just lay down and do nothing. We have to put up a fight for them because they deserve a wonderful, beautiful Colorado.
Absolutely. Kids are my primary motivator. They are why I'm doing this. I want them to inherit a state that they can actually afford to stay in, out of my basement. That would be good. But the other thing is I'm fighting for the kids in my district, and I'm a mama bear for my district. I want to protect all the people in my district from rural Colorado. So we need to be protected right now. We need to be protected from boulder intrusions.
And we all need to be protected from boulder intrusions. And we don't have to have kids. If you don't have kids in this room, I think the other thing we know is this is the future of our country. And it's the reason why there's been a concerted effort to take over our schools and turn them into indoctrination, not education centers. So it affects all of us. So I'm going to ask each one of you a specific question. So Lynn, last year you founded ACT Academy, a private Christian elementary school with 5 other moms in Wheat Ridge. That is proactive. Tell us about that. What was going on that led you to do that?
2 years ago, well, it probably started 3 years ago, with the schools being shut down, kids in masks, being at home Zooming, Zoom in school. So we did not like our options come 2 years ago. So 5 moms and I, we got together and we opened ACT Academy, and we just want parents to be brought back to the forefront of their child's education. We go 4 days a week. Our core is in the morning, and it is based on parent volunteers. We try to keep tuition as low as possible, and it's just another option of educating our kids.
That's great, thanks. Heidi, most people know you're the only current Republican statewide elected official. We're going to change that, by the way. Not that you haven't been carrying the banner well, but it's a lonely spot. But because of that, you are Colorado University Regent. You've seen, not just in grade school, but in college as well, there's a battle to be had. Tell us about how that perspective is, informing what you're doing and some of the stands you've taken with the CU system.
Thanks, Deb. I've been a regent for almost 6 years now, and I've seen some really crazy stuff happen in higher education, mostly around free speech. And conservative kids, conservative faculty, and Democrat, liberal kids too, being shut down from having conversations, from being able to have an opinion or a perspective. But the most important thing I can say is, by the time kids get to college, they're pretty well formed, right? So we've got to focus on K through 12. What's happening in K through 12 is the precursor to when they get to college, and I'm just horrified with what's happening in the schools right now. And I moved from Boulder Valley School District, the public schools, down to Douglas County. I was part of the founding board of Golden View Classical Academy and Ascent, and I love the charter schools. My kids needed a different option because they needed really small classes because they have learning disabilities, 2 of them. So I helped open a small private Christian school, Colorado Christian Academy. And I want every parent in this state to have that same option. So we've got to go all in on choice and competition and making sure the funding follows the families, or this isn't possible for a lot of parents. So we've got to make it possible for every parent in Colorado. I'll finish with this, especially in Denver Public Schools, where 95% of African American and Hispanic kids cannot read at grade level right now. It's a tragedy.
Yes, hear, hear. Courtney, last year you were elected to the Adams 12 School Board. And I think it's very interesting that you actually beat an opponent who had 10 times the budget that you did. So tell us what was the key to that win and how that's informing your run now.
Well, the key to being successful when you're so massively outfunded is people like Heidi Pitchford and Cindy Green and Beth, who are in the audience with me. They were some of the biggest supporters in my school board race, and these women, along with others, were the ones that were go-getters. We were putting business cards on cars and painting windows and walking and talking, and we weren't afraid to have those conversations. And so really building a solid team of people that had true passion for change and were able to kind of see across political boundaries and really advocate for our kiddos was key. And then, of course, just outworking the opponent and being genuine with what we were doing.
That's great, and that's an important thing. Thank you, Courtney. Because we may see, that in Colorado, some of our Democrat opponents raise a lot of money. you can only raise so much money to sell a bad idea. Truth and hard work pays off, so that's a great example. Savannah, you have 2 children, one of which you homeschool. The same way I have 2. One went to a very unique charter school, one's mainstream public education. Talk about that choice, the homeschool option. There's a whole entire public school exit that is happening, and how that informs your perception of school choice.
Yeah, so I actually was working in our local school district at the time that I pulled my son to homeschool. I was a special ed paraprofessional, and I was really good at my job, and I loved it, and I did not want to leave at all. But I was in the school with him and looking at him, and I was thinking, he's just not thriving. This is not the child that he is at home. He was coming home with migraines, and he looked sad and worried all the time. And his teacher was a really good advocate for him, but not every school is going to work for every child. And I am the mom who was like, I will never homeschool. I am not one of those moms. But you always put your kids first as a mom. Nobody loves your child as much as you do. And if you don't advocate for them, nobody else will. So I pulled my son, much to my surprise, to homeschool him, and I am actually still homeschooling him throughout the campaign. And my daughter is still in public school because she does really well with I worked there, so I know each teacher, and I evaluate every year, like what's gonna work for you. And your zip code should not be your destiny as a child. So I am a big advocate for parents' rights in education, and it does inform who I am as a politician. I don't really like that phrase, public servant, but I want to make sure that other parents have the option that I had.
That's great, thank you. Well, I know, we all hear headlines all the time. There are many issues going on in our schools, from CRT to unsafe schools to age-inappropriate sex education. It goes on and on and on. And Heidi, you mentioned that, and some of the statistics I've seen is less than 30% of Colorado students can do math at grade proficiency, less than 40% can read. I mean, whatever marker we're looking at, we're failing our students. What do each one of you think is the primary issue? There might be more than one, but tell me what you see, and then we're going to follow up and say, what do you believe you can do, whether it's in the House or the Senate or the governor's mansion, which needs to be redecorated. Let's start with, what do you see right now as the primary issue in Colorado education?
Can I start? Yeah. Funding. Okay, so I know a lot of times Republicans want to be like, no, we don't give money out. But a lot of our rural schools are desperately underfunded, and we don't get, I literally have a school in my district where there is water damage and the kids have to stop school to clean up water off of the floor. So they're not always studying math, they're actually cleaning up a mess because there's not enough funding for their school. And the funny thing to me is that the Colorado Democrats always campaign on school funding. But they have a $36 billion state budget, and they have a supermajority in our state, and they have not prioritized school funding. They have prioritized things like electric car chargers. So for me, that's a really big thing for my district. There's a huge disparity for rural schools, and that's not to say that urban schools are getting enough either, but that is what I see, because the funding per child is not enough to cover the maintenance of the buildings.
Yes, and I want you to get in there and look at the budget. I want to know, not your school, from the state level, where are they spending that money? Heidi.
Deborah, I did some work with Ready Colorado, and we came up with a number that the average classroom in Colorado gets $250,000 in funding, and only $50K of that goes to the teacher. That is crazy. We've got to incentivize our teachers and take care of them, and a lot of that is administrative bloat. So why is the money going to hiring more administrators? That money needs to go into the classroom. Same with higher education. I was talking earlier in a group. We have 62 new diversity and equity administrators at CU, all that make very good money, of like over $100,000 a year. And we have not moved the needle on diversity in 10 years. 10 years. Like, why aren't we taking those dollars and giving them scholarships and helping young people, minority folks? Like, come on, get those kids in here. Let's get them a good education. The other thing that we've got to do is choice, competition, and transparency. A bill failed at the legislature this last session to provide transparency to parents in the classroom. Why on earth don't they want us to know what's being taught in the classroom? Why are we being left out of the equation? That's why we've got to give power back to parents, and the best, most effective way to do that is through the funding and giving them access to walk away if they need to.
Great, here. Great, go ahead.
To kind of build off of what Heidi said, I'm very fortunate to serve on a board that is pretty well funded, but really getting into a deeper look at what that budget looks like and how we can reallocate funds so more of it can get into the classroom is going to be important. But I think a huge missing piece to this puzzle is our relationship with parents. We continuously shut them out. We've called them domestic terrorists. We've shot down the transparency bills, like you've heard mentioned. And we're not making the progress that our kids deserve because we're not going to the families and asking, what is it that we can do to help you and your child be more successful? Instead, we're taking this position of, well, we know best, and they're our children, and we have to put an end to that. So in the state legislature, I would love to see some more bills ran that support transparency, that support parents' choice, and kind of put some limits on some of the bloat that you see going on in the district.
I love that. And if you ladies begin to be back into the legislature, which I hope you are, I'll reintroduce a bill I helped introduce about 3 years ago, right after they passed comprehensive sex ed on the last day of the legislature, despite hundreds of parents showing up to testify. I helped introduce a sex ed transparency bill. It's like, well, we get to opt out, just show us what's in it. And you know what their excuse was right before COVID? It's just too hard to put curriculum online. So we'll be reintroducing that when you ladies take charge, for sure. Go ahead, would you like to answer that question?
Those were, all mine was funding, transparent curriculum, and just funding the student for sure. I would also love to just get the gender ideology pronouns out of the classroom and just get back to the basics, reading, writing, and math.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you all are walking and knocking on doors, we talked about the phenomenon that happened in Virginia, and I'll tell one other encouraging story. I interviewed someone a couple weeks ago who said that about 9 months ago when they knocked on doors, they'd say, you know, what bothers you? You know, what's on your mind? And kind of be a tepid, oh, you know, maybe, I don't know, streets or whatever. Now they knock on the door and the person answers and goes, absolutely everything. You know, I mean, they're worked up. And this is why our 43% unaffiliated voters are persuadable. So ladies, when you're going and you're talking to people, where does education come in? And tell us about those conversations. Do you think it's going to move the needle like it did in Virginia?
Yes, I actually, when I talk about education with families, they just want more choice. They want more options. They feel like every child is taught differently and that one school does not fit every student. So they want choice, and then they definitely want more funding, you know, the opportunity to fund their child and let that follow them, so.
Yeah, I just did door knocking today in Jefferson County and went to the Cider Festival and talked to probably 30, 40 people, and I brought a reporter with me from Colorado Public Radio. And I wanted him to hear what voters were saying. And people like opened up big time. And it was all across the spectrum about crime, about our kids, about what's happening in the classroom. I mean, several people talked about the woke stuff like very extensively. And he said, well, what do they mean? Like, what are they actually like referring to? Is it anti-LGBTQ? Is it anti-trans? I said, absolutely not. I said, we are a party that loves everyone. We are about individual rights. I said, but don't mess with our kids. I said, you know, we have the ability to have these conversations early on with our children and decide when they're ready. And parents are really upset about that power being taken away from them and being hidden. Because a lot of this goes back to leaving parents out of the equation. And one thing I wanted to mention, being in higher ed, the Department of Education in these universities is where teachers are trained. They are training them to teach a lot of this curriculum. So if you want to look at where it starts, it might be better to take an approach like Liberty Commons or Ascent does, where we're hiring professionals that can get certified with some, you know, type of program, but they've done chemistry their whole life. They're going to teach chemistry. It doesn't mean that everyone who wants to be a teacher has to go to a 4-year university and learn how to teach that way. So it's just something to think about as we move forward.
Which reminds me of a story in our documentary. We interview a physics teacher who is teaching high school physics, honors physics, and this is how far CRT goes. She was actually told, for physics, don't teach Einstein, Newton, or Galileo because they're white. We're supposed to teach Imhotep, who was an ancient Egyptian scientist that didn't actually even know anything about physics. So yes, just basic education is good. Courtney, how about you?
I'm in a little bit of a different position because we really shook things up when I got elected to the school board. I'm the only Republican, and so we really brought a lot of issues to light. So when we are going door to door, we do hear about crime and inflation, but then I get a lot of questions of, is this really going on? And even if we're talking to somebody that is very supportive of the woke kind of agenda being pushed, they're not happy about everyone being forced to kind of believe one thing or another. And so they really want to understand, why are we spending money on diversity and equity consultants that are coming in from out of state? Why are we don't even have middle school sports, which we brought back. So they really want to understand why some of the funding is going to these crazy programs that are not benefiting our kids. And so they're really passionate, they're really motivated to get out and have those conversations. And so they're just ready. They're ready for the school to focus on what matters most, and that to them is academic excellence.
Here, Savannah.
Academic excellence is what parents talk to me about the most, and teacher pay. So in Colorado, 55% of our school budget goes towards classroom instruction, like Heidi was saying earlier, and that's less percentage-wise than all of the states that border us. But the other thing is, like I said, I used to work in our local elementary school, and this was the first year that we started having our literacy carnival again after COVID, and I was so excited, and I set up my booth, like volunteering this year, not on staff, and every single kid who came to my booth was way behind. And parents are starting to notice that their kids are really behind in math and reading.
Well, thank you. We have literally 1 minute left, so I know we ladies can talk. We actually speak 20,000 more words a day than men do. I know no one's actually surprised by that. But I want to give you all this last minute because it's important to elect these ladies, and we can do it on the issues you're going to be hearing today. Lightning round down there, if you could ask everybody here for one thing for support, what would it be?
I brought postcards with me. You can write them from your couch as you're watching a movie, and I have a stack of 50 with addresses, and you can send them to swing voters in my district.
Well done. Well, I'm keeping
That's why I'm here.
I'm going to have a little bit more financially greedy request. I would love financial help. We're being dramatically outspent again, and I'm really tired of seeing Anta and Courtney ads 8 times an hour. So I would love to be able to kind of push back and really show the world how this is an important race.
Excellent.
Sorry.
Yeah, me too. I'm tired of the Polis ads raining down every day. Don't worry, we've got some tricks up our sleeves. But yes, donations are super helpful, but also, can you just volunteer? Can you just go to the website, sign up, and we'll connect you with whatever you want to do, whatever you're passionate about, door knocking, calling, texting, being a Ganahl gal, going to an event, honk and wave. There's so many ways you guys can get engaged. Would love to have you.
Yes, along all of those lines, also a yard sign. If anybody wants a yard sign in my district, Golden, those people that live in my district, name recognition is absolutely so huge.
Well, let's hear for these amazing ladies. 20 to 30 seconds.